Welcome back. This is Chicken Philosophy, the Meccan Revelations, part 66. Thank you, Depeche Mode. I know it's a cover, they didn't write it. I don't know who wrote it. All I know is when I played that version for my dad, he absolutely hated it and used to complain about this fucking French band. Didn't understand. They're British. I guess Depeche Mode, he assumed. Anyway, doesn't matter. Neither here nor there. Oh, Depeche Mode. I would take your advice, but with a slight amendment that here we call it National Highway 66, and it runs from South Goa to North Goa. It probably goes past South Goa and past North Goa. I'm really not sure. Editor Edward, how far does National Highway 66 go? It runs all the way from Maharashtra, north of here, to Tamil Nadu, the southernmost little tippy point state at the bottom of India where Pew and I got married. Running through 5 states, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka, and Kerala, and then Tamil Nadu. So somebody should make a National Highway 66 song, but there's substantially fewer states to rattle off in the verses or whatever. Well, now we know. If you learned something today, no, not yet. That's not worth clicking like and subscribe yet. Later. Anyway, so here's some footage of me driving on National Highway 66. Enough about National Highway 66. Sometimes I like to do a thing for the episode number, if that wasn't obvious. Oh, speaking of obvious, got getting in a little bit of the Halloween spirit. Pew likes things like Halloween and Christianity. Sort of there was a yin-yang phenomenon where I'm like, I came to India for the Buddhism and a little bit the yoga. I mean, Buddhism and yoga primarily, but I wasn't disinterested in Hinduism or Tantra or any of these other things. But for me, it was mostly the Shramana traditions. Anyway, we all have our kinks, right? So, yeah. Now, you might have noticed at the beginning of this episode that this came up and said 1061. And if you're extra paying attention, you might be like, wait a minute. The previous episode of Chicken Philosophy was Tao Te Ching Part 12, and that was 1056. What the heck has been going on since the last Chicken Philosophy episode? Good question. I'll tell you. Gwydion's Astral Podcast, that's my podcast. It's here. I'm having to be sparing with my links because I can only point 5 times. By the way, if this is your first time on Chicken Philosophy, or watching Meccan Revelations on Chicken Philosophy, and by some miracle you haven't clicked away yet, perhaps you want to start with episode 1 or surf the playlist. Here's the Meccan Revelations playlist. I hope you enjoy it. So that's 2 links. Okay, so on Gwydion's Astral Podcast, there was an old, sometimes we go through because it wasn't on YouTube originally. It was only on the podcasts like Spotify and like Apple Podcasts and all that for a number of years. Then in 2017, Edward deleted it, as he tends to do when there's a 7 at the end of the year. Don't even think about it, Edward, in 2027. Anyway, 2007 and 2017, he deleted most of his internet presence. I mean, he deleted all of his internet presence in 2007 and most of it in 2017. Anyway, something like that. Right, that's neither here nor there. So sometimes we're gradually putting not all of Gwydion's Astral Podcast survived. Some of it was recitals from New World Empire and the Interdimensional Coffee House, which ended up being published in the New World Empire and the Interdimensional Coffee House, which I've lost track of. It's somewhere. It's probably in the bookshelf. I don't know. But I can point to it. It's right there. See? Hovering in the air. Through the magic of... Right. So we put episode 35 back up. I mean, up on YouTube for the first time. So that's Pymander 1057, even though it's an episode from, if I'm not mistaken, February of 2016. And here's the image from it. So if you want to go to Gwydion's Astral Podcast, it starts with the most recent, which doesn't mean the most recently uploaded, it means the most recently recorded. So you'd have to scroll down, because we're up to 151 now. So you'd have to scroll down to episode 35 if you want to see this. Some of these older episodes are interesting for people who are like into chicken philosophy, because there's precedents that get established in 2016 which are upheld and maintained in the interactions between me and Edward and BT and Pymander today. So it's fun on that level, maybe. And then so that was 1057. Pymander 1057. 1058 was Edward Reeves' Travels 1 through 20, and that's going to be the third link. Yes, it's a 5.5 hour video, and it starts with leaving California. Leaving Los Angeles doesn't work quite as well, Sheryl Crow. Anyway, that's a whole other story. What am I talking about? Yeah. So it starts with leaving California, going to Africa, specifically South Africa, and hanging out with Kay on the gang. The cult, I should say. And then go off to Nepal and Bhutan, and then by part 6, so like an hour and a half into a 5.5 hour long video, I meet Pew. And then like another hour and a half later, we get married. I don't know if it's another hour and a half later, but the point is, it's the story of my life told in music videos, but the music doesn't start until an hour and a half in. So if you can handle an hour and a half of ambient, slow-moving stuff, then feel free, if that sounds enticing. I think it's good, if you're in the right mood. Otherwise, you can navigate from the description. You can skip to part 6, and that's where the music starts, and then it's more engaging for that part of the brain, or that speed of brain. Okay, and then after that, there was Gwydion's Astral Podcast 151, where I, Gwydion, sat right here and put the dust jackets on these books and pushed the camera back a little and put some books here, the Hagakure here, to make the red book a little further out, and then, so that, the orientation's a little different. You, as the camera, are a little further away from me, and there's more books visible, because when I put the 4 dust jackets on the 4 volumes of the Rig Veda, I wanted you to be able to see this one. So that necessitated pushing everything back. Now you're all caught up. So, no. Then there was 1060, which was Zen 13, the Platform Sutra, which didn't suck. I won't say it was one of the better ones, because it wasn't. But it's not like the previous Buddhist books before that was one of the worst ones, unless you define the goodness of a Buddhist books episode by whether or not I openly compare Buddha to Nazis. Then the previous one was better. I don't like those ones. They make me uncomfortable and unhappy. I prefer to think of the Buddha as like a good person. I don't know. It's a personal preference. We all have our kinks, right? All right, so that's twice. I'll have to say that one more time for the rule of 3. No, not necessarily. See what I did there? Nothing really. Our beverage for today. See this Coke. Do you guys have Coke Lime in your country? In my country of India, we do, and I don't know if it's just a local thing here. Coke Zero. Lime Coke Zero. Cheers. It's water. This was an empty can from yesterday. But I enjoyed the aesthetic of There. Now we have a thumbnail. All right, so now we're going to do the usual. The top one is 1, the bottom one is 6. I'm going to take this 6-sided die and roll it. And it says 1, so we're going with Damasco, as that used to be called in the Fama Fraternitatis. Damascus, Syria. Maybe you've heard of it. Of course you've heard of it. It's been in the news. Any place we go to war, I see it. Sometimes I slip. Any place that America goes to war over or with or at or using as a chessboard with Russia tends to be a country that people are familiar with, even without education. So, on that happy note, let's light some Damascus oud. So we got water in a lime Coke Zero can, we've got oud, and we've got wind, and we've got some Halloween decorations. All right, and now, without any further ado, I think that was all the stuff I wanted to ramble about in this episode at the beginning. Yeah, I think so. I'm going to put out a Carl Jung, the BT's Carl Jung Tarot Yellow and Black episode is going to come out on Halloween, I've decided. So this is just a we're getting in the spirit, so we've got the decorations, but this isn't the Halloween video. However, this is the Halloween of 2515 playlist. That's the playlist. This is the image of the playlist. We're in the middle of making that playlist. It's going to be going on for a while after Halloween, because we're only now getting to the black and yellow episode, which is like just a few. We're on the first of the 3 cycles within the cycle, because there's 5 books and there's 3 cycles of 5 per 15, because there's 3 of us usually, except when Pymander shows up, which he might. I don't think he'll show up this cycle, because I don't think we're going to finish Martin Luther. I could be wrong, but okay. So let's get to the Hafiz Bibliomancy, shall we? Who wrote all the music? Why is it now that I come to you like a humble servant, willing to feed you brilliant words and love from my own sacred mouth and hands, willing to say, I'm sorry, I am sorry for all your pain. It is because God fully revealed himself to me. Knock it off, Editor Edward. It's not what he means, and you know it. I saw that it was Hafiz who wrote all the music you have been playing. I saw it was Hafiz, the person who's speaking, who wrote all your notes of sadness, but also etched and gave you every ecstatic wince of joy your face, body, and heart has ever known. Oh, maybe he does mean this. No. Okay, my dear. You have stumbled enough in the earth's sweet dance. You have paid all your dues many times.
I've paid my dues.
Now let's get down to the real reason why we sit together and breathe. And begin the laughing, the divine laughing, like great heroic women and magnificent, strong men. Women's empowerment in the 14th century in Iran. I think the 21st century Iran should take a note from... Yeah, the golden age... Stop talking, Edward. Just stop. I mock the West and America enough that I think it's okay for me to poke a little fun at the Middle East, as they call it. Apparently, Middle East used to mean India, and Near East was what is now called Middle East. But then they needed to call Eastern Europe the Near East after the Soviets took over half of Europe, so they didn't want that to be Western anymore. So hence the problematic defining and redefining and my issue with the term West and how I like to include Islam as part of the West. So it's ironic when I use a generally accepted term like Middle East. Anyway, nothing at all interesting. All right, so that was the fun part of the episode. Now, no, this is fun. Michel Chodkowitz. So we're not actually reading Ibn al-Arabi's Futuhat right now. But what we are reading is the foremost Western, this specifically French, scholar of, devotee maybe on some level, of the teachings of Ibn Arabi. He's passed away, but he put these books together for us, and he's thought about these ideas long and hard. Will of our kings. Okay, that's done. And so while I take everything with varying degrees of grains of salt, I think it's important to do that. I think it's important to keep a little bit of distance from what you're reading, but be willing to plunge in wholeheartedly. Why? Why so early? What the fuck? I'll be right back. Anyway, so I think that when I was in the cult, I was surrounded by people who were the sorts of people who would digest things and write books, and I was always kind of getting into arguments with them. And so I took to, skipping introductions and not being interested in the interpretations of people who've lived in the past 50 some odd years, but instead wanting to just reach back to the original, stuff. And I'm still generally oriented in that direction, but I've gotten some distance. It's been, it's been 12 and a half years since I could call myself a cult member or co-leader, technically, I guess, by then. But anyway, yeah. So what am I talking about? Yeah. So I don't mind hearing Michel Chodkowitz's ideas. They help to flush out. They're when you talk to those people in your cult, if you're in one, or if you got a really cool niche group of people at the local coffee place or whatever, you've accumulated some people that you talk to once in a while on interesting subjects. And one of them is into Sufi stuff. The stuff he says is going to sound like Michel Chodkowitz, and that's kind of why I was gravitating away from Michel Chodkowitz. Because he can kind of help, same with Tal Malachi. So we brought in our Tal Malachi to go with our Nag Hammadi. We brought in, this book provides the Michel Chodkowitz to go with the Ibn Arabi. I prefer to read the Ibn Arabi, to just hear the words of the Sheikh coming straight out of 800 years ago. But the French guy who's spent his life studying it and has his interpretations of it. The thing is, he'll come out and say things like, yeah, Ibn Arabi, when he says Muhammadan, he really just means universal. And it's does he though? That seems like an interpretation. Ibn Arabi never said, by the way, in a footnote, when I say Muhammad, I mean universal. No, that's Michel Chodkowitz's interpretation. And it might be his way of trying to make the text a little bit more easily digestible and palatable for the French, or, the atheistic, secular, humanist, agnostic, Catholic, Protestant, far west, we'll call it. The far west, just the edge, just like France, Germany, England, Norway, Sweden, and then everything they conquered. You count Spain? You should, right? Spain and Latin America, but no. Because of the sinking of the Spanish Armada in 1588, they lost their status as being the biggest assholes on earth. For a little while, the Portuguese had the title. Then it was the Spanish and the Portuguese, and then it went to the British and the Dutch and French. And the Germans had it for a little while, just 100 years ago. But where were we? Now we all know who has it. Someone in the Middle East. Never mind. Okay. I mean the nation, obviously, not the religion. I'm not one of those assholes. Just want to interject a little footnote here. Yeah, it's topical, not without its element of truth. What Gwydion has just said in partial jest. But I think it's important to point out that among the big bads doing the most evil in the world these days, right up at the top of the list would be United States, China, and Russia. And I think Israel gets, they're doing particularly shitty things in a very sharp and pointed way in a specific place openly. And, but they're kind of new on the scene as far as like the big bads of the planet Earth go. So I think it's important to point that out and not imply accidentally or on purpose that they are a bigger bad than the three biggest bads who are still continuing to be bad. They're new on the scene. Plus, I think that the collective human race for the past 80 years have been like, don't be anti-Semitic, and then finally, okay, now it's okay to talk shit. No, maybe some folks, but anyway. All right. End of footnote. Totally different kind of asshole. So we're reading Michel Chogowitz for the rest of the episode because the introduction is long, where there's no way we're going to finish it by the end of this episode, especially if I keep interrupting and saying random shit. The idea of Thabad, which, as commenters have remarked, runs in filigree through this passage, even though it is not to be explained until later, is the only thing that hints at what is to come next. I wasn't going to assume that that's what commentators comment about Thabad. But I'm a bit juvenile, not really a commentator per se. Then there's a bunch of Arabic, and I'm not going to try to read it. But then it seems to translate itself. Quote, and which has offered as the fulcrum for their existence the orientation toward them of his words, so that we might realize the secret of their adventitiousness, and their eternity, and that we might tell the difference between their eternity and his eternity, with a capital H, end quote. It's interesting. It's an English translation of some Arabic words. I can't help but ponder. They're putting forth the assumption that we might tell the difference between their eternity and his eternity. Who says there's a difference? I often, as you know, put forth the proposition that there isn't. You're God, so am I. Anyway, I think a lot of the Sufis, they go that direction too, but then they come out and say, but consider though that we're not though. Okay. I mean, that's kind of like overrepresented is the thing. If you take a poll of people who are like, are you God? Am I God? Most people who know the definitions of God that are given in this day and age will say no. They'll either say no, God isn't real, or they'll say no, how dare you even imply that that's even a question? And then every once in a while you run into someone like me who's like, yeah. And they say, are you a part of God? And you say, on one level, but on a truer level, no. I'm the totality of God. Just like every point in the universe contains the entire universe. Never mind. How do you say this with such certainty? Gnosis. Can't argue with that unless you want to. I mean, you can in your mind. In your microcosm, you might have a checkmate, but we're playing with different rules of chess. My rules of chess are the king's not on the board, so it's just a bunch of little things fucking around. The king is the board, and all the players. What are you talking about? I don't know. I'm just making shit up. Automatic writing with my tongue, if you know what I mean. The divine words, which can be understood as being the modalities specific to each of the things. Yeah, stations. You remember that? I mean, that's not what it's saying, but you remember the concept. I like that concept of stations. It's like, well, where you're standing, everything you're saying is true. From where I'm standing, some of it doesn't really make sense because where I'm standing, I'm God. Where you're standing, you're worshiping God as a separate being from yourself. Both are true, but they have truths within the station that only make sense in the station, right? Right. Okay, like train stations. Oh, where's the bathroom? Oh, go down the hall and to the left. If you're in a different train station, you might end up in a weird place if you follow those directions, because the bathroom's in a different place at that station, right? Simple. What? The divine words, which can be understood as modalities specific to each of the things from the command, kun, with an exclamation point, be, I assume. I mean, it says be without an exclamation point, but the kun, never mind. That made them go from the state of non-manifestation to the manifested state, are more properly speaking here too, the divine names, the list of which is infinite, and each of which is the base of support in divinis mustanad ilahi. I shouldn't do my ecclesiastical Latin voice when I'm in divinis is Latin, and the other thing must be Arabic for the same thing. For a specific thing, its ontological root and its raison d'être, or raison d'être. Remember, Michel Chokowitz is French after all, so sometimes, there wasn't a good translation for that. So in the English translation of this was French originally. But we're going to have to leave that one in French, but we'll put it in quotes so it sounds pretentious. Is it more pretentious to put French in quotes? Ibn Arabi sums this up in one sentence a few lines later. Quote, for each servant there is a corresponding name that is his Lord. It is a body, and this name is its heart. End quote. He was quoting Ibn Arabi. I wanted to milk everything I could out of that brief moment of actually reading Ibn Arabi instead of Michel Chokowitz. Back to the Michel Chokowitz. But things are also reciprocally the raison d'être for the names with a capital M, since for each name there is a corresponding thing in which alone its epiphany can take place. Did I ever tell you j'ai étudié le français pour toi au lycée? What are we doing here? Apparently my paternal grandpa spoke more fluently. I mean, he spoke fluently. I don't. I know how to say that one thing. And if I think about it, maybe a few other things. J'aime le fromage. Is it le fromage, or la fromage, or le fromage? Don't know, but I j'aime it. J'adore it. Sorry. Since for each name there is a corresponding thing in which alone its epiphany can take place. Quote, adventitious, end quote, in the sense of their manifestation, things are also eternal, ad extra. From another perspective, since they are actually identified with the names or divine speech, Kalimat Allah. Kalima? No, that's a different thing. Different language. It's a homophone. Really. As Ibn Arabi would declare on a number of occasions when he compared the universe to a, quote, great Quran, end quote. Dogen said that you can read the ripples of water you can read the sutras in the ripples of water if you know how to read it. Reminds me a little bit of Ibn Arabi saying that the universe is a great Quran. Oh, dig it. The passage we translate here nevertheless emphasizes the necessary distinction between God's eternity and that of things. God knows that he is, and that he is eternal. Things, as Ayan Thabita, know neither that they eternally are, nor even that they are. Objects of God's knowledge for all eternity, they become subjects and become conscious of being only after the kun that brings them into existence. The next part of this same passage, quote, "And so that we might understand, when this realization comes to us, what he has taught us regarding the Siddiq Kadamihi," end quote, would require a full explanation of verse 10.2, which the last two words refer, for it to be intelligible. Let us bear in mind, however, that kadam literally means foot. Parentheses, it has the same root as the word kidam, eternity. Eternity and foot. Calvin Klein adds, probably, you could find a common root. Never mind. But that it refers etymologically to the idea of presence. Foot. Okay. The foot is what holds a thing up. Everybody has their kinks. Damn it! 4 times too many. What? In this sense, the true foot, the platonic foot. It's just a platonic foot massage. It's two different. It's a homophone. Nothing. Never mind. Is nothing other than the mustamad ilahi, the essential reality in divinis. In divinis, of course, meaning in divine, or whatever it says up there. Of everything in existence, meaning the whole set of aspects or divine names, whose unfolding ad extra constitutes the universe. In the sense of precedence, it refers to the mystery of predestination, those who know the secret of what in them is adventitious, and what is eternal, know that everything that comes to them is the manifestation of what was included as a fact of predisposition in their Ein Thabita. Michelle, if you're going to try to make this more intelligible, could you try to make it more intelligible? It's probably my bad for not writing down every time he says something and defines it. Okay, refer back to, what was the Ein Thabita? Oh, yeah. Anyway, considerable time could be spent on each word of the khutbah, although there is not room to do so here. It's so lame when people say that. Like, if somebody's like on a news broadcast and they only have 5 minutes to work with and they're not a regular anchor, they only come like once a year or something. I don't have time to go into it, but suffice to say this, moving on. Then it makes sense. If you're writing a book, we don't have time to go into it here? Think of another reason why you're not going to go into it. Because you have as much time as you want. You're writing the book. You could make it 3 volumes instead of 2. Unless there was legitimately some restriction. You can write a 2-volume set, but they each have to have 261 pages. No more. Then it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of space in the book. So I hear it a lot. And on YouTube, you're making a YouTube video. Yeah, as you know, I just put up a 5.5-hour YouTube video. We don't have time. I mean, that's a lot of assumptions. Like, well, in order to get the preferred amount of people to watch, then the algorithm prefers it if I stay under this amount of time for this particular subject, and then monetization, blah, blah. The same people who say they're being censored when advertisers won't give them money because they said some crazy shit in their video, and they're like, I'm being censored. No, you're not. I'm listening to you. I can still hear you. It's just nobody's paying you. That's not censorship by anybody's definition. Dumbass, you know. So what am I talking about? Yeah, you have time, Michelle. In heaven. In heaven, everything is fine in heaven. What? I don't know. What are we doing here? How are you doing? Are you good? We must limit ourselves to showing how extremely dense the text is, and to pointing out that from these very first lines there are fundamental ideas present, albeit discreetly so. So discreet that no one else can see them. Only Michelle Chokowitz can see them. Ibn Arabi didn't even notice when he put them there. No. The discretion is relative. I mean, if it's a relative, you gotta be discreet. You know what I'm saying? So what if the rest of the family finds out? Then they'll... What? What are we doing here? The discretion is relative, as the following quite unambiguous words later show. Quote, if he addresses his servant, it is he who is both the listener and what is heard. They only will say it roundabout. They'll never come out and say, yeah, so here's the thing. You're God. I'm God. The end. Go home. Have a happy God existence. You're, one of many simultaneous ways in which God, the totality, is existing in a finite form. They won't come out and say it. So they say, let's think about the difference between us and God. One thing that I'll tell you is when God talks to you, he's actually talking to himself. Nobody is hearing his words except for him. His ears alone. He alone is the witness. And say, oh, so I'm God? No, that's blasphemy. Don't say shit like that. You get fucking head cut off here in Damascus. Right? So it's like, it's Vedanta. Kinky Vedanta is what it is. Vedanta with BDSM. What? No, something like that. I mean, very close to that. I mean, you can't deny from a scholastic perspective that what I'm saying is true. Right? Oh, what? I think my brain has officially, rejected the idea of reading, so I'm going to go ahead and put, this, he who is both the servant. Right. Okay, if he addresses his servant, it is he who is both the listener and what is heard. If the servant does what he commands, it is he who is both obeyer and obeyed. But it leaves some room that if the servant doesn't do what he commands, then it's not God who is disobeying God. That must be the devil. Must be where the individual in his free will to choose to not be God. Maybe. I mean, it seems like it's leaving room for an out. So if he's on trial and they're like, okay, we're about to cut your head off because this thing you wrote here sounds almost exactly like you're saying you're God. He's like, no. If God is talking to you, the ears that are hearing are God. And when he commands you to do something and you do it, then the doing of it is God. But, ... what I didn't say was that sometimes it's possible for an individual human to not be God. And they'd be like, oh, okay, well, very good then. Let's just give you a pat on the head with a dagger instead of cutting your head off. Very strict, some folks in history and in some places in present day. Sorry. We'll cut off your head for blasphemy, and that's not good. That should be gotten rid of, regardless of whatever else is pretty or interesting about the culture. Anywhere, everywhere. I mean, I'm not saying that Americans are better because they're not cutting people's heads off. There are assholes running around like they're trying to, they'll send you to be tortured in South America for blasphemy instead of, maybe that's worse. So on that happy note, I hope that you all are enjoying the Halloween season, and I hope that you'll come back for Carl Jung part 89, I guess, is what it's going to be, where BT puts the tarot cards up on the screen here. And feel free to check out the links in the description below, down at the bottom with the picture, the things I pointed to in the corner throughout the episode. For the end of this one, I think I'll put up the Edward Reeb Travels up here, the 5.5 hour travels video, which is good. You can check that out. Maybe not today, but at some point. You can make a mental note of it. You can always find my channel, Edward's channel, BT's channel. They're at the bottom of the description of every episode of Chicken Philosophy. And of course, you can always click where it says Pymander Aquarian in the description, and it'll take you to the playlist, so you can see the recent stuff and surf and explore the older stuff as you like. But for today, the end screen will be Edward Reeb's Travels 1 through 20 up here, and Gwydion's Astral Podcast, episode 35, the one that's from 2016. We'll put that, or 2017? No, 2016. We'll put that down here. So take your pick. Take your choice now that you know that you've got one. Or you can turn off your phone. Or you can watch some other schmuck's channel instead of this schmuck. This is the schmuck you want. Don't look that up. Until next time.